Hello YouTubers and welcome back. TransAtheist here with another short rebuttal video. This time it's the final talk given at the Saturday session of Jehovah's Witnesses. This talk is given by Stephen Lett of the governing body. Now firstly, please do remember to like and subscribe, as I am a new channel, and the more supporters I have, the better content I can create. Thank you for your support. Now this final talk is, in my opinion, a prime example of one of the many delusions the governing body teach to Jehovah's Witnesses, without providing any evidence to support their claims. And as I mentioned in my last video, the more extraordinary a claim is, the more extraordinary that evidence needs to be. Obviously this is no different than most religions that we see today, but I focus on Jehovah's Witnesses, and you will know why if you've watched any of my other videos. But just before I play the first clip, I'm sorry if you've never seen this speaker before. I do realise that Stephen Lett has an awful way of speaking, as if he is talking to children. It's very condescending and it's very patronising. But this is how he always presents his talks. Also, this is an edited version of the talk. I have clipped out all the irrelevant bits. Just to let you know, mostly I've done this for copyright reasons, as I do in all of my rebuttals. The first clip is a point he makes that is relevant further on in his talk, and relevant to a point that I'm making as well. So let's see what he has to say.
And what is the value of one eternal life? Well, one brother said if all of Jehovah's Witnesses pioneered until the end came, and one person learned the truth, it would be worth it. That's the value of one life. In fact, with all the money, the gold, the silver, the diamonds combined, you could not buy one eternal life. It's priceless. But not one, almost.
So this is an important point later on in the talk, so make a note that he is saying here that life is very precious.
Up to the point of baptism during the last service year, as a result of Jehovah blessing the disciple-making skills of his people. But as we mentioned before, learning disciple-making skills now prepares us for the even greater disciple-making work of the new world. In fact, let's talk about how vast this work will be, this educational work in the new world. If we think about it, millions have been made disciples during these last years of the last days. But in the new world, apparently, billions of disciples will need to be made. How much greater is a billion than a million? 1,000 times greater.
Yes, Stephen, I was just thinking, what I'm going to really need here is some help with that sum. They didn't actually teach me math in school, you see. Sorry, I did warn you he speaks in a little bit of a patronising manner.
Well, think about the environment. Satan the devil will be gone. That'll be like a 100-pound block off all our shoulders. The spirit of the world will no longer exist. That spirit of the world exhaled by Satan, because Satan will be locked in the abyss, and you could say it'll be airtight. He'll not be able to exhale the spirit of the world from there. One government will rule the entire earth. All human governments will be gone. And think of this. Never again, never ever, will the unrighteous outnumber the righteous. They will always be the minority.
So we can start to see the delusions that he and the other governing body members have. Satan being in control of every human thought outside of their organisation. Which, if that were to be true, then Satan would have one hell of a bad case of multiple personality disorder, as there are many different, even warring views in the world. And to think that we all either are being manipulated by some spirit, whether it be Satan or whether it be Jehovah, these are both ridiculous ideas, as there is absolutely no proof either of these entities even exist, other than the Bible, and no other evidence to back it up. That's a pretty weak argument to me. Then he mentions at the end of that clip that never again This is after Armageddon, by the way. Will the righteous be outnumbered? Now that point follows on from the point in the first clip that all human life is precious.
So this wonderful environment will undoubtedly make disciple-making even more exhilarating in the new world. But now let's think for a moment about how voluminous the work itself will be. John 5:28 and 29 says that all those in the memorial tombs will hear Jesus' voice and come out. All in the tombs. Who will be included among these ones that will come out of the memorial tombs? We'll open up to Acts chapter 24. And let's notice who will be included. Acts 24, verse number 15. And I have hope toward God, which hope these men also look forward to, that there is going to be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous. So you notice it's guaranteed. It is going to happen. Not maybe, good possibility. It's going to happen, and it's going to include the righteous and the unrighteous. But now here's a question. Why will the righteous who are resurrected need further education? Well, even though they're already servants of God, they will need to learn details concerning fulfilled prophet.
So he says that all those in the memorial tombs will be resurrected, and they will include all the righteous and all of the unrighteous. Now later on he goes on to explain who these will be. Basically, he says the righteous will be believers of Jehovah throughout history. And to Jehovah's Witnesses, this means them, the ancient Israelites, the first disciples of Jesus, and the apostles, but not later Christians after the formation of the Catholic Church. So we are talking maybe, let's be generous, 100 million people? But did you notice his earlier comment? Never again will the righteous be outnumbered. I don't see how this is how that is possible by any form of logic. It seems as there is bound to be many times more of those who have died that have not worshipped Jehovah. Think about the different civilizations, like the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, then all the smaller civilizations as well. I did some investigating on this with the Bureau of Population. They did a study on how many humans have lived and died. They could only go back 50,000 years, but keep in mind we have been around for approximately 200,000 years as humans. But in 50,000 years of history, the number is approximately 100 billion people who have died up till now. Also did some research on how many humans the Earth can actually support. This is estimated to be a maximum of 11 billion people, with 9 billion people being the optimized highest number. So again, without him providing any evidence of what he is saying, I'm going to call it a delusion.
But now here's a question. Where will the billions of new disciples come from? Even though the resurrected righteous ones will need to be educated, they're already disciples, aren't they? So where will the new disciples come from? Well, ones born after Armageddon will need to be made disciples. Also, there'll be a vast multitude of unrighteous ones who will return from the grave. Now, they'll come from all different backgrounds, and they'll come back and they'll need to be taught. They'll need help to accept Christ's ransom, to obey the things that are written in the new scrolls, because most of them will know nothing. Now, maybe some studied a while, but death prevented them from continuing, but most will know nothing, completely unaware about the good news. And as we said, they'll come from all time periods, locations, cultures. Some may have been rulers maybe slaves, maybe criminals, maybe self-righteous persons, maybe ones died in combat, died in childbirth, died of disease, perhaps the coronavirus, died by starvation, natural disaster. And it seems that the last thought on their mind when they died will be the first thought when they come back.
I'd like to state here for anyone listening who is not familiar with Jehovah's Witness teaching. They believe that everyone alive at Armageddon who is not a Jehovah's Witness will be annihilated by Jehovah at Armageddon and will not be coming back. And here he is stating that everyone who has ever died, apart from those living now, will be eventually resurrected. This means, and he even says it, that there will be criminals, murderers, rapists, and the others that he mentioned, but also think who else? There's going to be tyrants, people who committed genocide, paedophiles, and history's worst, most evil people. But all of them are going to get a second chance, supposedly. And we unbelievers all get killed in an act of genocide simply because we do not believe. He's saying that everyone today is worse than, for instance, the war criminals of World War II. This is very, in my opinion, I'll say it again, delusional. We live in the most peaceful time in the history of human records. So it would stand to reason that those of us living today are mostly nice, caring, honest, and peaceful people.
Imagine situations that could develop. Here's just an example. Imagine a former ruler had hundreds, maybe thousands of slaves who catered to his every desire. Now he comes back in the resurrection, and his overseer is one of his former slaves. And he tells him, gives him direction, loving direction, but direction, to plant a tree in a certain location. Now, will he humble himself? Interesting possibilities. Think of the atheists who will be resurrected. Here they ate Jehovah's food, they drank his water, they breathed his air, they walked on his ground, never gave him any credit, never acknowledged him at all. Makes us think of the illustration of the pig under the apple tree. He gobbles up the apples off the ground, but he never looks up to see where they came from. Now, we may not use that illustration with these atheists that come back, but they will have to be helped to see what a selfish life they lived. And now they're going to have to praise Jehovah, acknowledge, give him honor, glory, and worship. Will they do so? Well, it'll be up to them. But you, brothers and sisters, will help such ones.
Well, I have news for you, Stephen. You've just used that analogy to atheists. This is a publicly available convention. Guess you're not converting any atheists anymore. How rude you are, calling me and people like me stupid as pigs. Can tell you right now, we are 10 times more your intelligence. We need proof for things, and you never provide any. You just sit there, read the Bible, interpret it however fits your delusions, and then give that as proof. Well, saying God exists and the Bible proves it because he wrote it is a completely circular argument, and thus is not valid. And if atheists were to be resurrected, I probably wouldn't be after making this video, but if any did, then I'm sure they would be asking Jehovah some questions. Like, why are you a God of love when you've committed genocide countless times and permitted slavery? How can you be all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-seeing when in the Bible you change your mind and laws time and time again? How does an all-knowing God not know what Adam and Eve and Satan were going to do? Lastly, why would I serve someone like you? This is by far not the worst thing Stevenson's going to say, as next we have the LGBT community.
Touched on that previously. Yes, resurrected ones will have much to learn, and you, dear brothers and sisters, will have the privilege to help them see. They'll need to learn about Jehovah, his qualities, all the wonderful things he's done. Many will need to reject false religious ideas that they believed in Satan's world. Here's just an example. Imagine one who really believed that all good people go to heaven. But now he's resurrected and he's brought back here to the earth. Obviously, he'll know that teaching was wrong. But what about other false teachings that he believed? Will he change his mind and heart? Will he accept these truths? It'll be up to him. But you, brothers and sisters, will help such ones. There will be many others who will come back who will have to abandon their former way of life. I was thinking, as an example, a homosexual. Now, this former homosexual comes back in the resurrection, and he really thought, and he was taught, and he came to believe that God accepted him with that lifestyle. But now he's going to learn about Jehovah's moral standards, and he's going to learn that Jehovah will not lower his standard to accommodate us. We have to come up to Jehovah's standard. Will he change? Will he adjust? It'll be up to him. But you, brothers and sisters, will help such ones to enjoy life eternal. All must learn to walk in Jehovah's righteous ways and willingly choose to do so.
How dare you talk ill of the LGBT community? You have no idea what it's like for homosexual people and transsexuals. Firstly, it's not a choice. It's definitely not a lifestyle that is taught. There's no such thing as an LGBT recruitment school. We're not trying to teach being gay or trans to anyone. All we want is for people to respect us for who we are. And if your God Jehovah exists, then he made us the way we are. That's not a loving God. A loving God does not create someone a certain way, make it so that they have to live that way, then tell them they are abhorrent in his eyes, and thus have to break their programming in order to receive his love. There's nothing moral in that action. I'm starting to think this new world is not really worth living in. It does not appear to be sound, moral, peaceful, loving, or kind. In fact, it's starting to sound very much like a fascist dictatorship. Again, delusional.
But now, what if someone refuses to make the necessary changes? Well, the Watchtower commented on that. It said, after being given ample time, maybe even 100 years, to seek God, some will show that they refuse to practice righteousness. Justly, they will lose life in the new world, as we can see from Isaiah 65, verse 12, which says, "And the sinner will be cursed, even though he is 100 years of age." But we expect this will be the minority, that the majority will be delighted to make the adjustments so they can live in that wonderful new world. But I think about what one brother told me concerning his Bible student. His Bible student kept saying, well, how do I know I'm going to like life in the new world? How do I know I'm not going to be bored? Well, finally, the brother told him, he said, well, one thing about it, if you don't like being there, you don't have to stay. That was kind of humorous, but a lot of truth. A person has to willingly want to be there, make the necessary changes, but we believe the vast majority will be delighted to do so. And what a privilege it will be to teach ones in that new world, a time when Isaiah 11:9 will be true, which says the earth will certainly be filled with a knowledge of Jehovah as the waters are covering the sea. I mean, think about it. This earth, 71% of its surface is covered with water. And if you smooth all the land out, seawater would cover the planet Earth 1 2/3 miles deep. This is a watery planet, isn't it? Well, that illustration there in Isaiah just shows how prolific, how widespread, how filled the earth will be with a knowledge of Jehovah at that time. And that wonderful knowledge will enable faithful humans to grow to perfection and to sufficiently be equipped to face and pass the final test at the end of the...
Oh, that's just brilliant. Resurrect people. Then if they don't like you, kill them right off, back again? Really loving action, that is. Yeah, Stephen, I think I wouldn't want to live in this new world. It sounds an abhorrent mix of no morality and hatred. A place where everyone has to think exactly the same, regardless what they believe. Everyone has to do exactly the same, regardless of what they want. And everyone has to be happy with that, regardless of how they feel. And do that forever. Wow, sounds like hell on earth to me. This is a delusional belief system with no evidence to back it up, but it's still taught as truth. Plus, the whole thing is impossible. As I said earlier, there is estimated 100 billion people who have ever lived. The Earth can support 11 billion people maximum, and Stephen has said that the governing body believe the majority will live forever on Earth and accept Jehovah. The math just doesn't add up. Not to mention, the Earth has a lifespan, and it's estimated that in 1.75 billion years from now, Earth will not be able to support life. Even if that didn't happen, in 5 billion years, the sun will become a red giant and swallow the Earth whole. So how can anyone live forever on Earth? Oh, and eventually the whole galaxy will be destroyed when it collides with the Andromeda Galaxy. And even the universe itself has a lifespan, so eventually that will cease to exist. I reckon that all puts a rather large spanner in the works for this new world order. So whereas Stephen and the governing body cannot provide any evidence for their delusional ideas found in the Bible, science can provide plenty of evidence as to why these ideas would be impossible. So in conclusion, remember, when Jehovah's Witnesses come calling at your door, they are preaching that the genocide of 7.8 billion humans, who happen to be the most peaceful in history, to be replaced by 100 billion less peaceful and in a lot of cases horrible people, of which the earth cannot even support, and an idea of which is proven to be impossible. But they believe it because the Bible says so. And the leaders of this organisation hate atheists, religious people, and the LGBT community. They want to shut down freedom of thought, freedom of identity, freedom of speech, and freedom of belief, which are the cornerstones of our peaceful society today. So thank you for watching my video on the New World delusion of Jehovah's Witnesses. I hope it's been informative. And remember, ignorance is never bliss.